Hey everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This time I'm sitting on my bed as opposed to what I've been doing for the past few weeks. I thought something different this time round. What I'm going to cover is writing your personal statement. So one of the things you have to do when it comes to applying to university is writing your personal statement. This gives it the chance to not only show your interest in the course that you want to take at university, but also gives an opportunity for whoever's going to read your personal statement to have a glimpse into seeing you as both a person and a potential student. When I was writing my personal statement, it was quite a difficult thing to write, working out what to include and then how to structure it and how to write it. So I thought I would share you some of my tips. I've got my laptop here, so I'm going to go through my personal statement which I've got on here and just talk about the kind of things that I included and then giving those tips along the way. And I'm going to do all of this in this lowdown on writing your personal statement. So starting off with planning and structure. So the first thing to remember is it's useful and it's important to do planning. So this can be jotting down ideas, doing a spider diagram, or however you like to plan things. Just jotting those ideas about what you've done, the books that you've read, or the activities that you've done, what you are studying at A-levels or equivalent, and also thinking about those connections you're going to make between what you've done, what you've read, and the course that you want to take at university. Because it's not about just listing things, it's about explaining its relevance to the course that you wish to study, and that gives a chance to show your interest and your enthusiasm for the course that you want to take at university. So it's important to just, when you're jotting those ideas down, think about how you're going to link them all together, how you're going to link it to, and how you're going to use it as part of your personal statement. And while you're doing that, it's useful to look at other personal statements. There might be some from the years above. If you've got older siblings, they might be able to provide their personal statement. But there's websites online that might be able to help you as well. And use them as a guide. And remember that at the end of the day, your personal statement is personal, and what I mean by that is it's based on your experiences, what you've done, what you are studying, what you're interested in. So use other people's, but as a guide. It should only really be as a guide, just to give you some idea of how people have approached personal statement, and that builds into the idea of the structure. So yes, obviously you're going to have to have a clear structure. So a good starting point. Talking about your studies and some extracurricular activities as well, and then come to that final conclusion. But that structure is, again, it's going to be personal to you. It's going to be personal to what you've done, what you've read, and what you've experienced. So I'm going to touch upon a structure in a moment when I talk about extracurricular activities. So looking at my first paragraph, when it came to starting my personal statement, I think that was probably the hardest part, because I wanted to strike the right note, because it's the first thing that whoever's going to read your personal statement is going to see. So you want to catch it right. You want to think of something that's going to that's going to create that good start. Some people I've known have done quotes, so they've quoted someone. So some people have referred to events, and that is what I did. So in my personal statement, I referred to a report that I read online, and it was talking about the Grenfell Tower authorities potentially facing criminal charges of gross negligence manslaughter. And so because it was law that I was interested in taking at university, I thought I would include that report. And then what I did from there is I linked in a case that I was looking at online. And I also linked it to an open learn course that I did on Europe and law. And what that allowed me to do was to take an event and link it into my interest in the law. So I talked about, I mentioned a case. So I'm taking a real life event and applying the law to it, or making connections between a real life event and the law. But also the fact that I was able to then talk about my open learn course as well, because it's important in your personal statement to show your interest in the subject. And the way in which you can show your interest in the subject, in the course that you want to take, is by explaining in detail some of the things that you've done around that particular subject, around that particular course that you might be doing at university. So for law, talking about the Open Learning course on Europe and the law was a great chance to make that connection. And then I ended it off my first paragraph by saying, this criminal law in action, as well as my passion to challenge such violations and help others achieve justice, motivates my aspirations to continue my law studies and pursue a career in this field. So what I did, therefore, to end my first paragraph was to take what I've just explained there with the news report that I'd read, the Open Learning course, and just connecting it all together. So I talked about the criminal law in action, using that opportunity to show my interest and to show my enthusiasm for the course that I wanted to take at university. My next paragraph then looked at A-level studies, so the subjects that I was taking for A-levels at the time. So I started off with criminal law, and what I made sure was that I wasn't just listing my subjects. I wasn't just going, well, I've done law, I've done English literature, and I'm doing psychology. I wasn't just listing it, but I was making sure that I was explaining how it linked back to my interest in the law. And that's always important, to make sure that you're linking everything that you're saying back to the interest in the course that you want to take at university. So for example, when I was talking about A-level criminal law, I said that I have developed my ability in discussing and applying the law to various scenarios. So talking about what I've gained from it, not specifically what I've done, but what I've gained from it, whether that be a skill that I've gained from it, an understanding of the law that I've gained from it. It's in a way about what the result, not necessarily what you've done, if you see what I mean. And that also allowed me to talk about some of what the wider reading that I had done. So I referred to What About Law by Catherine Barnard, and I talked about that giving me the insight in including being able to break down cases to assess legal principles, and I referred to the case of R.V. Brown, which was discussed in detail in that book. And that's quite important if you are going to talk about wider reading. It's important, first of all, it's important that you've actually read the book, because it didn't necessarily, can't quite remember if getting a lot of questions on my personal statement, but there's always the possibility that in your interview, if your university, as part of the application process, has an interview, might ask questions about your personal statements. They might say, oh, you mentioned reading about What About Law by Catherine Barnard. Could you explain what particularly interested you about it? What did you learn about it? What did you take away from it? If you're in the process of reading it, that's fine. It's obviously just make sure you've finished reading it, and also linking on to that, make sure that you've reread your personal statement before your interview, just to remind yourself of what you've looked at, what you've said that you've read, done, etc., and just in case that they do ask you questions on your personal statement. And then afterwards looked at and referred to English literature and psychology that I was taking as part of my A-levels, but again I made sure that I linked it into my interest in taking law at university. And one of the ways I did that was talking about some of the transferable skills that I developed. So for example, in English literature, I talked about English literature has allowed me to develop written and verbal analytical skills which I can apply when critiquing legal principles. So I talked about the skills that I'd gained while I was taking English literature and how that might be useful in studying law at university, which is quite useful not only to show how it's because I'm showing how it's relevant to law, but also showing how what's neat, showing my understanding of what will be needed for me as a student at university, in particular in a student taking law at university. So being able to assess legal principles, assess cases, look at academic literature and assessing those, which is what I've been doing whilst I've been at university at Cambridge. Moving on to my third paragraph. In this one I talked about my work experience. So at the time I was writing my personal statement, I had done a work experience at a local solicitor firm here in Sunderland. It was so they did things like conveyancing, wills and probate, etc. And I just briefly talked about what I had done there, but then again linked it in. So I said this helped me This helped to develop skills such as organisation, responsibility and confidence, and is given insight into the daily function of a law firm. But it's not about whether that person's done like 3 weeks of work experience, or if they've been to the magistrate court 10, 20, 30 times, but it's about what you gain from what you have done. So even if you've only been to magistrate court once, for example, that's fine. But the key thing is to talk about what you gain from it, what did you take away from it, what did you understand about it, and how that's maybe improved your interest in, if you were to take law, for example, how it improves your interest, enhance your interest in the subject. So when I talked about their skills such as organisation, responsibility and confidence, I was talking about what I gained from it and what I took away from that experience. I then, in my next paragraph, talked about going to the local Sunderland Magistrate Court. I referred to putting theory into practice. So I talked about the chance of going to the Magistrate's Court allowing me to see how the law worked in action, seeing the magistrate, how they conduct cases, seeing obviously the prosecution and the defence putting their cases forward in the magistrate court, and just seeing the processes of the court and seeing like I said, the law in action. So again, not just listing things, we're talking about what I gained from it and what I took away from it. I then used that as an opportunity to talk about some of the other things that I'd done. So for example, I referred to the EPQ that I did. For those who don't know, EPQs are like extended projects. And I was given the opportunity, you could do some kind of like project plus 1,000 words, or you could do just 5,000 word essay, which is what I chose. And I did on anti-terrorism laws of the UK, and whether or not there was a balance between national security and the rights of the individual. And what I did is I talked about the fact that it said which required research and critical discussion, skills I will use at university. So what I did there was talking about linking it into my best statement, making it relevant by talking about some of the skills that would be useful to have at university, which has indeed been important. So for example, studying law at university, quite often you will be reading textbooks, doing your research, in looking for academic literature, reading through cases. So having developed some of those skills already has certainly been useful, and of course I've been developing those skills as I've been studying law at university. But the key thing, like I've just been saying, and I know I keep mentioning it, but it is important, it's talking about the benefits that you gain from it, talking about the skills that you got from it, and linking it into the course that you want to take at university to show, as an opportunity to show your interest in that particular subject and why you want to take it at university. I then went to talk about things such as the fact that I volunteer at St Benedict's Hospice Retail, which is a local charity here where I live, and this gives me a good chance to talk about extracurricular activities. When it comes to more competitive universities like Cambridge and Oxford, they focus more on the academic side of things. So you might have been hearing things like 80-20, 90-10, and what that basically means is, for these kind of universities, it's more around about an 80-20, 90-10 kind of thing, i.e. focusing more on the academic side of it as opposed to the extracurricular. I think mine is probably 75-25, so mine's probably a bit more generous towards the extracurricular activities. But when you are including extracurricular activities, again, make sure that you're linking it in either to the course that you want to take at university and or linking it into studying at university. So for example, when I was talking about volunteering at St Benedict's Hospice Retail, I said, and I quote, that it has allowed me to develop independence and the ability to handle pressurized situations, attributes which I will demonstrate at university. So again, linking what I had done with university life, and which is important because it's given the chance not only to for the person who's going to read your personal statement to see your interest in the course that you want to take at university, but also before they interview you, if they're going to interview you, getting a glimpse of what you might be like as a potential student. The extracurricular activities is in a way a good opportunity to show a bit of you and a bit of what you are like and some of the skills that you've developed. I then come on to the final paragraph of my conclusion, And again, like starting this, I think concluding it was probably one of the most difficult parts. Just working out again how to end it on the right note, but also remembering when it comes to the final paragraph, you shouldn't be adding anything new to it. Everything that you should wanted to say should be in the main body. So it's not about adding anything new in your final paragraph. I used this as an opportunity to talk about an aspect of the course that I was interested in. So I said here, my commitment to learn and willingness to understand the fascinating areas of law, such as criminal law and constitutional law, would make me an excellent candidate to study law at your university. So what I did there is I identified an aspect of the course that interested me. So I referred there to criminal and constitutional law, which were two modules that I had studied as part of my first year at Cambridge. And then what I did was just made a final statement, just summarising basically what I can bring and in terms of being a student at university and studying law. So I said here, my experiences with my work placement, my academic studies, alongside my voluntary work, all demonstrate my all-round ability to be successful on a demanding course where I continue to develop critical thinking and public speaking. So I just wanted to have that strong end as well as a strong beginning, because that will be the last thing that they read, and so you want to end on a good note as you would want to begin on a good note as well. So final point to talk about is proofreading, and I've split this up into two parts. One is self-proof, and the second one is other proof. So what I mean by self-proof is it's important, and whilst it can be difficult to be critical of your own work, I've struggled with that in the past, being able to criticise my own work. It's important to go through it, read through it, speak it out loud, and just see if it makes sense, that you've got what you want in it, and also making sure that the structure's there, making sure that it's, yes, you're going into detail, but getting to the point, making sure that the grammar's there and the spelling's all there as well. And of course, this might mean that you'll have many iterations of your personal statement. I went through that. I had multiple iterations of my personal statement. So, for example, I'm going to quote you something from my first personal statement, and then I'm going to quote the last personal statement, and I want you to see if you can notice the difference. So, I'm talking about my work experience. So, my work experience was at Sweeney Miller solicitor firm, which involved administrative work of fine documents into the corresponding case files, organising and opening mail, and solicitor-based work such as backs payment instructions and referral fee payments for conveyancing. This allowed me to develop skills such as organisation, communication, responsibility and confidence, as well as giving further interest and insight into the responsibilities of a solicitor. That's the first draft. Looking at the final draft, what I said was, my excitement for the law has been furthered by work experience at a solicitor's firm, which involved administrative work and helping with conveyance and payments. This helped me to develop skills such as organisation, responsibility and confidence, and has given insight into the daily function of a law firm and a solicitor's routine tasks of contacting and advising clients. Can you see the difference there? In the first draft, I pretty much went on too long with the description and didn't go into a lot of detail in terms of linking it into the skills that I gained from it, the benefit of doing that work experience. And then the other thing I talked about there was other proof, and what I mean by that is getting other people to check it. So what I did is I got at least three people to check it. I got my law teacher who I had at the time to check it, which made sense because it was law that I wanted to take at university. I also gave it to my English teacher I had at the time, so that she could look at things like wording, structure, grammar, spelling, and making sure that I was getting what I needed to get down in the way that would be appropriate for a personal statement. And then finally, I got a member of the staff who deals with the applications to university, and got her to have a look at it and give her thoughts on it. So if it is important to get other people to check it, that is my lowdown on writing your personal statement. If you've got any questions, do put them in the comment section below. I will answer them, and I'll just give some advice and thoughts. And if you need some more advice or thoughts, again, put them in the comment section below. I will also link in Google Drive to my first and final draft of my personal statement. You can have a look at them, look at what the first one was like compared to the final draft, And again, like I said, just use it as a guide to kind of help just to understand how, one way in which you could write your personal statement. Like I mentioned, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and also don't forget to like the video, don't forget to hit the notification bell to keep up to date. Like I mentioned last week, the vlogs will be coming out again in a few weeks' time, so stay tuned for those. Come on this journey as I go into my second year at Cambridge University. And you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram as well, and I hope to see you all in the next video.